Hi guys, this is Eileen McKusick tuning in with you today from Jamaica to talk about how distance biofield tuning sessions work. So with everybody stuck at home and feeling anxious, many people are asking about how biofield tuning could possibly be used at a distance to help them feel better, because for a lot of people it's a stretch to understand that, right? And I totally get that because I felt the same way. So before I describe to you how I've observed that it may work, I want to tell you just the story of my own reluctance to even try. People asked me for years. I started doing biofield tuning in its first iteration in 1996, and it wasn't until 2000 and probably right around 2010 or 2011. So I'd been doing it for 15 years before I ever tried it at a distance. And people would ask me if I could do it at a distance. And I would always say, no, this is physics. This is like on the body physics. Like there's no way that I could possibly do this at a distance. I felt very sort of arrogant and smug about it. I was convinced that it couldn't be done at a distance without even trying it. I was convinced, right? And how many people out there are convinced it can't happen and they haven't tried it yet? I was one of them. So I have a friend who is an MD who helped me with my master's thesis and also wrote the foreword to my book, Tuning the Human Biofield, which you should check out if you haven't yet, because I go very in depth in my book, Tuning the Human Biofield, about this. So if you're nerdy and you really want to go deep, there's a lot of information there, a lot of scientific citations and things like that as well. It's based on a master's thesis. So Dr. Merritt asked me if I would try to do a distance session on him. And he explained that he would lie down in his treatment table in his office in California, and I would pretend that he was lying on my treatment table in Vermont, so 3,000 miles away. We had no open line of communication at all. So I approached the table as if he was really there, and much to my amazement, now my research over the last 23 years now has been sounding the human biofield like sonar and listening to the ping back. And what the many thousands of hours revealed to me is that there's actually an anatomy and a physiology in the tonal landscape around the human body. That every emotion produces its own frequency signature, that every pathology is the body making a sound. Now, these are very high frequency, very low amplitude emissions, right? But everybody's had the experience of getting a bad vibe off of somebody. And we pick up these vibrational vibrations from people. The tuning fork does it brilliantly because that tuning fork produces an infinite number, technically, of overtones and undertones. And these very high frequency, very low amplitude waves outside of the audible range intersect with the emissions from the body, and that information precipitates down through the octaves into the hearing range. So what I basically do is start from 6 feet away from a person lying there or an empty table, because it works this way too. And I use the tuning fork like a needle on an album, reading the record of somebody's life. So information I find close to their body is current or recent, information at the outer edge of their field, which is bounded by like an electromagnetic membrane out there. Our fields are bounded toroidal structures that circulate electromagnetic energy. Information out there is gestation, birth, and then if somebody is 60, I'm going to find information from when they were around 30, about halfway through their field. So what I did with Dr. Merritt is I went through his whole field, and I read the whole thing. I took notes, like this age was a lot of stress, this organ doesn't sound right, it feels like you have inflammation here, I think that you had a head injury at this age, all these things that I could do in person. I found the exact same information field even when he wasn't there. Okay, mind blown. So then I got on the phone with him and I went through my notes, and I explained everything to him. And he said, you're exactly right. Like that age, that organ, that joint, my mom, like all these things, you're absolutely right. And I felt a state change. Like I felt different. I felt you working on me. And I was like, get out of town. Like, and then I had to eat crow, right? And be like, oh, these people, I'm like, nah, it's not possible. I'm like, yeah, it actually is, right? So then I started doing it more and exploring. And in the beginning, I didn't have any open line of communication. I just went in and listened, and it taught me how to listen even more deeply because I didn't have somebody on the table to say, were you in a car accident at 13? I couldn't ask them. So I had to listen even more deeply, which led to an even deeper and greater understanding of this vibrational language of the body. People always said the same thing. I got on the phone with them and I went through my notes. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm just stunned. They can't even speak. They're like, how did you know all that, right? I'm not a psychic, right? This information is there. So how is it there, right? How does it work? Because it's sort of like going into a library and plucking a book off the shelf and reading it. That's kind of the effect. All I need to know is your name and your age. I don't even need to know your age. I can just think of you, and your information packet appears on the table, and I can delve deeply into your soul and tell you all about it, right? And make you feel better at the same time. And not just me, because I've trained thousands of people how to do that. This hypothesis has been tested countless times over a decade with thousands of people and has produced the same outcomes virtually every time. Students are able to read the record. They're able to inform and influence the person's feeling state. People claim they get rid of pain, they get rid of anxiety, and it all happens usually in a matter of just a few sessions. This is an incredibly valuable resource for people at home to be receiving, right? But we gotta jump that credibility gap. Like, how does it work? Well, can you tell me how your cell phone works? Can you tell me how a microphone works or a speaker works? Can you tell me how your television works? I don't even know how to turn on music in my house. Somebody else on smart TV. Like, we don't know these things. Do we need to know them in order to enjoy and appreciate them? Right? So what's the insistence that we need to know how this works? It's like, just try it. It works, right? That should be good enough, unless you want to go deep into the science. The problem with trying to go into the science, excuse me, is that there is no science. There's no official accepted science. So we can't tell you the science. There's esoteric science. There's ether-based physics, which is what I've come to see, that everything we see, the ground state of all of creation, is all the same thing. It's all one thing. It's all light. Everything in the visible universe is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And we only perceive a tiny, tiny bit of it. What does that mean? It's all light. And it's all one light. It's all one unified, vibrating field of light. Which means anything that's happening here is simultaneous, is instant within the oneness of the unified field. And you can call it the 0 point field, you can call it the quantum field, you can call it the Higgs field, you can call it the source field, you can call it the Planck field. There's so many different names for this thing, you call it God. But I call it ether because that's its classical term. And the ether is the luminiferous ocean of light that all waveforms move through, that arise in, its infinite potential. Everything that ever is, was, or will ever be arose from the ether and goes back down into it. It's all one. So what we're working with, and it's all one and it's all holographic, which means that this little tiny bit of ether right here contains the information of everything that ever is, was, or will ever be, because it's all one thing. It's like a giant cloud storage system. It records every single keystroke. And so it's like a library in that way. It explains remote viewing, right? Because here's the thing. If your field is out here, right? In biofield tuning, it's a different model. In this model, the body is inside the mind rather than the other way around. So my mind is out here and my memories are accessible around me. Where do I end? Right? You don't. Because you're just a waveform of light in the infinite field of light. You are infinite. You are everywhere. And that is why you can move your state of awareness into these different places in order to do like remote viewing or distance healing. And let me tell you something, distance healing has been proven scientifically through huge amounts of research. It's just all pushed under the rug. Like really well done studies have demonstrated consistency in distance healing over and over and over again. In fact, we just decided today to turn our upcoming study, is going to be on veterans, into a distance study, because everybody's like, well, how does the distance work? So the good news is an in-person study has just turned into a distance study. And now we're going to actually have some actual data to demonstrate against a control group that something is really going on here. So that's good for all of us. Okay, so just in summary, I believe that the reason why distance healing works, one, I've seen evidence up the wazoo, and so have thousands and thousands of other people. Okay, so just direct experience. You can call it anecdotal, but to me, everybody out there who's doing these is a scientist in their own clinic, under their own lab. What are they discovering? They're discovering the same thing that I discovered. So there has to be a natural law if you see this degree of consistency across it, right? Now, obviously, if you have a new practitioner and a really sort of stubborn, disconnected person, something might not happen. But I can guarantee you that if you get a session with a seasoned practitioner and you have an open mind, you will be pretty amazed. And at this point, for me, the only way that I receive Biofield Tuning Sessions is at a distance, and it's been that way for years now. So I don't think that in-person sessions have more value than receiving sessions at a distance. So I would invite you to open your mind and be curious. And, the best thing that can happen is that you're going to feel better, because we've seen people get over anxiety, depression, pain, like no end of discomforts through this work. And I know myself receiving over the years, I've gotten rid of everything. And people see me and you're like, oh, Eileen, you're healthy. Well, you didn't see me 10 years ago before I started receiving this work. It has completely and utterly transformed my health, my life, and the people all around me who've been doing this work for a while. It works. And I know we all need things that work for us, especially right now. And if you calm your mind, and you open your breathing, and you shift your perspective, you might find that there's opportunities all around you at the moment that you can't perceive when you're in a stressed state. Okay? So Biofield Tuning will help calm you down, it'll help shift your perspective, and it will help you to see opportunities here. Because there's definitely a lot right now at this moment in time that you gotta feel good in order to see them and to act on them. Okay, and Biofield Tuning will really help with that. Many other things besides. Okay, that feels complete. I hope I answered your questions. If I did not answer any questions, please just put them in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. Tell your friends. Okay, everybody, be well. Take care.